What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. I know it's been a couple of months since my last upload for this reread. I truly apologize for such a long stretch. My hope is that I will have A Feast for Crows done before the end of the month, and then starting in June, kick off A Dance with Dragons. So without further ado, we are covering chapters 22 to 31. I hope you enjoy.
Every day, the kindly man asks Arya who she is. When she replies, "No one," he tells her that she lies, trying to get her to forget her true self and give up her past. But Arya resists. She works hard in the temple, cleaning and doing other chores. She witnesses many people entering the temple, some to light candles, others to curl up near a statue to die, and others to speak in private to the kindly man. When asked whose name she whispers at night, she finally admits that there are people she wants to kill. But the priest tells her that it is the many-faced gods who determines who shall die, not her. He also finally convinces her to dispose of her possessions, and she does so with all but Needle, which she hides outside the temple under a stone. Once she has done this, the kindly man comes to her and tells her some of their history. The faceless men are older than Braavos, having started amongst the slaves working the mines beneath the volcanoes of the Valyrian freehold. The slaves worked under the harshest of conditions, and since they came from many different nations, they all prayed to different gods. But one amongst them, although he may actually have been a noble's son or an overseer, no one knows, realized that they were actually all praying to one God, one who could set them free from their torture. The kindly man does not finish the story, but now Arya is a novice at the temple, and she and the waif begin to teach each other their respective languages. As Arya learns Braavosi, the waif also teaches her how to read a lie on someone's face, and Arya discovers that the girl is actually well over 30 years old, having taken poisons as part of her sacrifice to become faceless. One day, when other priests of the many-faced god visit the temple, Arya asks the kindly man how to change her face as Jaqen H'ghar did. While the priest knows not the name, he tells her it takes years of prayer, sacrifice, and study to accomplish what he could do. Still, Arya wishes to learn, so he tells her to begin training the muscles of her face in front of a mirror every day. The next day, the kindly man tells Arya that she must leave the temple for a while, so as to learn the Braavosi tongue by being amongst them all the time. He instructs her to find a fishmonger named Brusco, but to not reveal who she really is. Arya decides to use the name Cat, pretending to be an orphan girl from King's Landing. Sansa is now completely in the role of Alayne Stone, and she has considerable influence in the Eyrie. On the balcony of her rooms in the Maiden's Tower, she surveys the armies of the Lords Declarant camped outside the Gates of the Moon. Lord Gilwood Hunter arrived first and immediately blockaded supplies from reaching the Eyrie. Though they are not yet under siege, the situation looks dire from her standpoint. Lord Robert, even more irritable than normal because there are no eggs or bacon, tells Alayne that he still hears Marillion singing every night. Alayne assures him that the bard is dead, although she has not seen the body, but she herself no longer hears the singing. When Littlefinger arrives, he informs them that the Lords Declarant are on their way up to the Eyrie for a parley. He tells Alayne that there will be 8 of them, but he is only concerned about Lyn Corbray. We learn that Lyn fought against Jon Arryn at Gulltown on the onset of Robert's rebellion, but later fought alongside him at the Trident, where he slew Prince Lewin Martell of the Kingsguard and broke the Dornish line. While his elder brother supports Peter's position as Lord Protector of the Vale, Sir Lyn has taken up with the Lords Declarant. Bearing the Valyrian sword Lady Forlorn, Sir Lyn is a dangerous and unpredictable man, quick to demand a duel. The Lords Declarant seek to defend Lord Robert and the Vale, but do not acknowledge the Lord Protector, naming him a false counselor who has been misruling the Vale. After Robert has another fit, Littlefinger suggests that Maester Coleman try giving him sweet sleep, although the Maester seems reticent to do so. Alayne tells her father that Jon Royce will recognize her, having met her at Winterfell when Waymar Royce took the Black, but Peter explains that men see what they expect to see, and she also asks him why he doesn't leave the Vale to take up his position as Lord of Harrenhal. Littlefinger is convinced the place is cursed, especially after what happened to Tywin Lannister, Gregor Clegane, and Vargo Hoat. Lady Shella Went recently died without any heirs, claiming yet another family that once ruled at Black Heron's Nightmare Castle. When Alayne recommends that he give Harrenhal to Lord Walder Frey, Peter smiles and tells her he might, but he would really like to give it to Cersei, although he might have to remove her from the game sooner than planned, unless she removes herself first. Alayne leads the Lords Declarants up to Peter's Solar, where he confounds them by saying that he would like to sign their declaration to weed out the false counselors. But Jan Royce tells him they did not come to obtain his signature. They are here to remove Littlefinger and take Lord Robert to foster at Runestone. Peter informs them that he plans to foster the sons of the other lords here so that Robert will have boys his own age around. He also asks Lady Anya Waynwood to send Harold Harding to the Eyrie as his ward, but the lords scoff at this request. Littlefinger refuses their demand that he leave the Vale and turn over Robert. After he calls their bluffs of violence, Lynn Corbray draws Lady Forlorn, but this enrages the other Lords Declarant, and Bronzion tells the knight to up his steel, reminding him they are guests. Corbray stalks off, but this has worked to Littlefinger's advantage, as he now turns hostile towards the lords, demanding that they lift their encampment and give him 1 year to set the Vale to rights, or else he will willingly step down as Lord Protector. All the lords except Jan Royce agree, and Peter emerges victorious in the parley. Later that night, after the lords have departed, Alayne asks Peter what he plans for the next year. Littlefinger continues his tutelage of Alayne in playing the Game of Thrones. He states that 1 or 2 of the older lords may die over the course of the year, and Lord Gilwood Hunter may well be killed by his younger brother Harlan, who arranged old Lord Eon's death. Peter admits that he will never be able to sway Bronze Jan, but when Alayne inquires about Sir Lynn, he tells her that he can be bought with gold and boys and promises. Cersei continues to obviously move from one folly to the next. Angered by Tommen's brazen demand to sit on the Iron Throne, and at council, she realizes that Margaery put him up to this. Cersei refuses to give up her power to anyone, at least until Tommen comes of age. Next, she sends away the Iron Bank's envoy, Noho Dimitis, after telling him there will be no payment until the rebellion is ended. She receives word from Pycelle that Lord Manderley had Sir Davos beheaded, and the Freys confirm this. Later, she speaks with Osmond Kettleback about his younger brother's failed efforts to bed Margaery. Osmond swears that the young queen likes him, but that they are never alone. The Kingsguard names some of those always around her, including the male singers she prefers to entertain her and her companions. When Cersei crosses the yard and finds Tommen riding at the quintain, she is infuriated. Once again, this was Margaery's idea, and while all those gathered are cheering the young king's jousting ability, Cersei blunders by saying, "One day you shall rule the list, as your father did." Margaery astutely catches this and asks what tourney King Robert had won. The Queen Regent evades this by mentioning Robert's deeds at the Trident. She then berates Loras for teaching Tommen how to ride, but the Kingsguard reminds her that there has been no Master-at-Arms at the Red Keep since Aeron Santagar was killed. Walking back to her Solar, she considers sending for another Dornish Master-at-Arms just to irk the Tyrells. In her Solar, Qyburn informs her that Prince Doran has imprisoned Daemon Sand for demanding the release of the Sand Snakes, and that Silva Santagar has been hastily married to the elderly Eldon Estermont. He also tells her that both Daemon Sand and Silva are close friends of Doran's daughter Arianne. Cersei could not care less, but she is interested to hear of a treasonous puppet show. She commands Qyburn to have the 4 puppeteers put to death, but Qyburn wants the women for his experiments. Cersei has already given him Sanel, but he tells her that she didn't last. The Queen Regent recalls her screaming in the darkness when she was down in the black cells, but grants Qyburn his test subjects. Later, as she is bathing in preparation for dinner, Jaime arrives with Tommen, who is demanding to see her. The boy king wants his horse tomorrow so that Loras can continue training him, but his mother will have none of it. Jaime mocks her for suggesting that Sir Osmond is thrice the knight Sir Loras is, but Cersei finally convinces her son to wait for a new master-at-arms to be named. As she gets dressed, Cersei recalls her fit of rage when her washerwoman shrunk several of her gowns, but it is obvious she is unaware that she is actually gaining weight from all of the alcohol. Her guests for dinner are Felice Stokeworth and her husband, Balman Birch. It is revealed that Tonda Stokeworth has been thrown from her horse and fractured her hip, but Cersei thinks to herself that Tonda will not recover from the wound at her age. Felice says she was refused hospitality by the ward of Lord Giles Rosby, and that she encountered ruffians on the road. Cersei deftly convinces Felice and Balman that she fears Bronn is either hiding Tyrion or gathering swords for him, and may mean to try and kill Tommen. They assure her that it was solely Bronn's responsibility for naming Lolly's bastard son, Tyrion, but Balman gets the hint that Cersei would like to see the ex-sellsword disposed of, and tells her not to worry any further. On her way to bed, Cersei peeks in on Tommen and sees 3 kittens in bed with him. Meryn Trent informs her that Margaery gave them to him. That night, Cersei thinks of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and how King Aerys blocked their betrothal out of spite. When she was 10, her father and her Aunt Jenna promised she would be betrothed to Rhaegar after the tourney for King Aerys II in Lannisport. She was so happy that she agreed to visit the witch Maggie the Frog with her friends. They laughed at her prophecies, but that night King Aerys mocked Lord Tywin for thinking he would give his son's hand to his servant Tywin's daughter. And after that, Maggie's prediction started to come true, one after another. Returning to Maidenpool, Hyle Hunt informs Randyll Tarly that Brienne has killed 3 of the Bloody Mummers. Tarly again warns her against playing a knight, but Brienne will not give up her mission. She and Podrick meet up with Sir Hyle the next morning, and he tells them of his plan for finding Sandor Clegane. He reveals that the Hound has not joined Beric Dondarrion, and that the Lightning Lord's band had no part in the raid on Salt Pans. Lord Tarly has created this rumor in the hopes of turning the small folk against Lord Beric. Sir Hyle knows a Septon with a great knowledge of the Riverlands, and proposes that they accompany the man to the Salt Pans. When Brienne says she has no intention of traveling with Hunt, he tells her that he is no longer in Lord Tarly's service. They soon depart for Salt Pans, while Septon Maribald talks of the gods, his past, and the great bands of wolves in the Riverlands led by a demon of a she-wolf. Maribald tells them there may be broken men about on their way to Quiet Isle, and Brienne surmises that the Septon himself once had such an experience before he discovered his piety. Staying at an inn in Braavos, Sam is nearing wit's end. Darien has abandoned them for the brothels, Gilly remains inconsolable, and Maester Aemon's health deteriorates daily. To make matters worse, Sam had spent nearly all their coin on their rooms, a healer for Aemon, and a passage on a boat, Lady Eushonora, that they wound up unable to board due to the Maester's health. Feverish and dying, the Maester begs Sam to return to the docks to learn more about this rumor of dragons that Darien had heard at some wine sink. Aemon mumbles to Sam, "Dragons, the grief and glory of my house. My brothers dreamed of dragons too, and the dreams killed them, every one. Sam, we tremble on the cusp of half-remembered prophecies. I should have seen it. Fire consumes, but cold preserves. The wall." Sam departs that night to find Darien, but gets accosted by 2 bravos because he is wearing a sword. However, he is saved by Cat of the Canals, who tells him of another black brother about to wed the sailor's wife. Sam finds Darien at the Happy Port, but his brother from the Watch wants nothing more to do with the Black, or Gilly, or Aemon for that matter. Sam punches him in the face but gets tossed into the canal by the proprietors of the brothel. He is saved from drowning by Zondo, a huge summer islander who is mate aboard the Cinnamon Wind and knows of these dragons that Sam had mentioned. Aware that Cersei is trying to rid herself of him, Jaime argues that his place is beside the king, not off laying siege to River Run. But his sister responds that she can't rely on Davin and needs Jaime to defeat Brynden Tully, as well as find out why Gregor's men at Harrenhal have not released Wireless Manderly, as the crown requested. She states that Osmond Kettleblack will command the Kingsguard in his absence, although Jaime dislikes the idea. Jaime's command consists of Kenos, Dermont, Strongbor, Red Ronnet, as well as Ilyn Payne and Adam Marbrand, whom Jaime demanded as concession from his sister. On the first night, they guest at Castle Hayford, and Jaime considers the fate of his cousin Tyrick, who would be lord of the castle were he not missing. He thinks it possible the boy is still alive, perhaps having been secreted off by command of Varys, who very well could have known that the riot would occur. Starting that night, Sir Jaime begins training every night with Ilyn Payne in the hopes that he can become a proficient swordsman with his left hand. The company also visits Sowshorn and meets with Sir Roger Hogg. Arriving at Harrenhal, Jaime has Gregor Clegane's men release all prisoners, including Wireless Manderly, and then leaves Sir Bonifer Hasty and the Holy Hundred to hold the castle until Peter Baelish takes up its lordship. Jaime commands Bonifer to kill Sandor Clegane or Thoros of Myr if either are captured, but requests he send him any bloody mummers or Beric Dondarrion should they fall into his hands. Outside, Jaime comes across Ronnet Connaughton, who mentions how he once was betrothed to Brienne. When Ronnet mocks Brienne, Jaime hits him in the face with his golden hand and insists he calls her by name. Cersei and Taena share the Queen's litter en route to the Great Sept of Baelor. The lady from Myr is telling Cersei all about the men who are always around Margaery, and how she was present for the bedding at Renly's wedding. Although Taena is not sure if Margaery is still a maiden, she affirms that Renly was aroused. She also lets on that besides all the knights and bards, Pycelle is a frequent visitor of the young queen, and her brother Loras visits perhaps more than any other. They also discuss the new High Septon, a man who was once a sparrow and not a member of the Most Devout. This is not only surprising, but also of concern to Cersei, as she considers that they may have to poison this new leader of the Seven if he becomes unruly. Reaching the top of Visenya's hill, the Queen's litter can continue no further as the streets are packed with sparrows. Continuing on foot, Cersei considers Pycelle's objection to her choice of Osfried Kettleblack to replace Adam Marbrand as the commander of the city watch. She takes note of all the bones and skulls piled up around the statue of Baelor, and is told that they are the remains of Septons and Septas who were killed by the war, because they received no protection from the throne. At the doors of the Great Sept, armed men block the Kingsguard's entry since they bear weapons. Cersei must enter alone, and as she does, she wanders about these anointed knights answering the call to defend the faith. Inside the Sept, she is appalled to find Septon Reynard in rough-spun robes, scrubbing the floors, and learns that Septon Torbert has been imprisoned for being obese when so many are starving. She berates the new High Septon, the Sparrow, wearing frayed robes and standing before her barefoot. He tells her that the faith has sold the crown her father gave his predecessor, as well as all the valuables in their vaults in order to help feed the poor. Cersei recalls Qyburn's report that the Sparrows broke down the door of the Sept before the final vote with axes in their hands and their leaders on their shoulders. She now understands how this man was elected High Septon. Speaking in private, the priest reprimands her for beheading Ned Stark on the steps of the Great Sept and reveals that he hasn't come to the Red Keep to bless King Tommen because he is still praying for guidance from the Seven to affirm that the boy is the rightful king. The Queen Regent begins to seethe with anger, but concedes to his concerns that the holy men and women on the roads need protection from rape and murder. Cersei agrees to have Tommen rearm the faith, something King Maegor forbade almost 300 years ago. She promises to restore the faith militant, for which the High Septon will acknowledge Tommen as king and forgive the crown's debt to the faith. Back in her litter, Cersei tells Taena of her triumph. With one stroke she has gotten the faith to bless Tommen, reduced the throne's debt by almost 1,000,000 dragons, and cleared the city of sparrows by restoring the warrior's sons and the poor fellows. Yet, she doesn't realize the repercussions of what she has set in motion. On the way back to the Red Keep, Cersei's litter encounters Margaery's entourage, returning from a horse ride and picnic. Margaery tells Cersei that she should share some of the burden of ruling the realm. But Cersei laughs at her, especially when the young queen tells her she is always protected by her brother Loras when she goes riding. Victarion Greyjoy's Iron Victory has rammed one of the longships of the Shield Islands. Victarion kills Talbert Seri of Shout Shield, and the Ironborn's massive fleet is soon victorious in their conquest of the Shield Islands, which sits at the mouth of the Mander River north of the port of Old Town. It is Victarion's command that won the battle, but it will be King Euron they cheer for engineering their bold attack. Back in his cabin, as the dusky woman Euron gave him tends his wounds, Victarion recalls Aeron's words that he would find a way to remove Euron from the sea stone chair. He remembers how he had helped capture Lord Baelor Blacktide, who had refused to acknowledge Euron and paid for it with his life. Asha, however, had escaped the Iron Islands along with all those loyal to her. Landing at Lord Hewitt's town on Oakenshield, the Lord Captain meets the Reader and the Drum. Both are worried that Euron's little conquest will bring ruin down upon them, as surely Highgarden will respond. At the feast, Victarion notes that Euron has shamed Lord Hewitt and his wife and daughters. The recently crowned king then raises Harris Harlaw, Andric the Unsmiling, Maron Volmark, and Newt the Barber to lords of the Four Shield Islands, effectively stealing away the lieutenants of his adversaries. Euron declares that they will sail the next day with provisions plundered from the Shield Islands, selling the slaves they had just taken in the free cities on their way to find the dragons he had promised. But many of the captains object, stating that they should attack Old Town or the Arbor, and Euron stalks from the hall. Soon, one of Euron's bastard sons tells the Iron Captain that the king wishes to see him. In his room, Euron tells his brother that the Reader was correct, that the whole fleet could not reach Slaver's Bay together. But he believes that the Iron Fleet alone could, and promises his brother the Seastone share as reward if he sails to Slaver's Bay and returns with Daenerys. Euron means to marry her and ascend to the Iron Throne. With Lord Blacktide's words that Euron was maddest of them all on his mind, Victarion agrees to go, thinking to himself, "You stole my wife and despoiled her, so I'll have yours." Jaime's small host reaches Castle Derry, and he finds himself contemplating the genius of his Uncle Kevin for his choice of bride for Lancel, Emery Frey, whose mother is a Derry. He has dispatched Red Ronnet to accompany Willis Manderly to Maidenpool, but nevertheless he has too many men to be fed at his cousin's new castle. Jaime takes note of all the armed Freys and Sparrows in the castle, far outnumbering Lannister men. Derry's maester greets Sir Jaime, surprised by the unexpected visit, and tells him that Kevin departed right after the wedding, and that Lancel is praying in the sept. The maester provides him with Lancel's own room, since Jaime's cousin has taken to sleeping in the sept. As Jaime bathes before the guest feast, he notices that Jasmine Pickledon, his new squire, wishes to bed Pia. Jaime tells him to use Lancel's room for his first bedding, saying, "You'll feel a lord yourself when you're done, if Pia knows her business." But Jaime warns him to treat her kindly, perhaps due to his own guilt for refusing the girl when Qyburn sent her during his recuperation at Harrenhal. At the feast, Jaime learns that his cousin has been fasting since the old Septon died. Lancel also does not join them for dinner. Lady Amory begs Jaime to stay and help them defeat Lord Beric Dondarrion, the Hound, and the other outlaws. He learns that the outlaw seems to be following a woman now, cloaked and hooded, and no one has seen Beric Dondarrion for a while. Jaime's companion Strongbow claims to be moved by Amy's words and promises to return after they take Reaver to sort out the Hound. Jaime leaves the table and goes to the sept. 3 armed sparrows bar his path, but Lancel lets him in. Lancel admits that his father left after they quarreled and that he does not intend to consummate his marriage. And he then admits his greatest sin, serving the wine that resulted in King Robert's death, and that he had been sleeping with Cersei. Lancel states that he plans to forsake his title as Lord of Derry and head to King's Landing to swear vows as a warrior's son. When Jaime learns that Cersei has rearmed the faith, he is almost as upset as he is to discover that Tyrion was not lying about Cersei's infidelity. Later, in the yard, Jaime admits to Sir Ilyn that he slept with Cersei when she was at Castle Derry with Robert. Cersei wanted him to get Arya Stark, and he would have killed her had he found her first. Upon reaching the Quiet Isle, Brienne and her companions are taken up the path to see the elder brother. Brienne mentions to the brother, guiding them, that she is heading for Salt Pans to kill the Hound. This takes the man aback, but he tells them to speak to their elder. They see a huge horse in their stables, obviously a war horse, who has mauled 2 of their brothers. On a hill, they pass a huge cloaked novice digging graves. The man appears lame, but they cannot see his face. The elder brother speaks further of the horrible raid on Salt Pans, made worse by the fact that Sir Quincy Cox hid behind his castle walls and did nothing to help the villagers. After dinner, the elder brother speaks in private with Brienne. He asks what she seeks in Salt Pans, and when she mentions a highborn girl, the elder knows she refers to Sansa. He lets on that it is the Ron Stark she seeks, for the Hound captured Arya. Shocked that both of Lady Catelyn's daughters may yet be alive, she is equally surprised when he informs her that Sandor Clegane is dead. The elder brother has buried his corpse himself and left the Hound's head helm on the grave. It was some other outlaw who found and wore it when they raided Salt Pan. He goes on to tell her he took pity on Sandor before he died, and will only say that he is at rest when she asks if he is truly dead. The elder remarks that the horse in their stables was the Hound's stranger. The elder brother tells her that he was once a knight who fought for Prince Rhaegar at the Trident. He took several wounds in the battle and fell into the river, yet awoke on the shores of the Quiet Isle. He urges her not to be another casualty of this war and return home. Brienne breaks down and cries, telling him her story, finishing with, "I have to save her, or die in the attempt."
Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you for stopping by and watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to come back for more. Again, thank you for watching. Bye.